Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories, where we play tales to take you away from today. On the show today, we have Slyvia Shults, who's here with 4 ghost stories from her book, The Spirits of Christmas.
Impossible.
No, not only possible, but it's true. We also have a creepy Santa tale that is both perplexing and incredible.
Amazing!
It's so good that I named this show after it.
Ron, can we hear it now?
Not just yet, British guy. Up first, we have a 5-minute mystery.
Another 5-minute mystery.
This 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by real medical stuff, like Arskog syndrome or achondroplasia. The name is just a name until it's silly. It's kind of like calling your bike an acoustic motorbike or your bathtub a reverse boat. Now, let's get to the story before I neutralize your robotic senses.
Okay. Homicide Division, Inspector Nichols speaking. Who? Ralph Dean. The guy that backs all those nightclubs with his dough? Where? Right, I'll be there in 10 minutes. So you two are Thomas and Gerald Klein.
That's right, Inspector. We're brothers.
Where's the body?
That's right, fellas. The coroner'd like to make his examination as soon as possible.
It's in this next room. You see, we're both bachelors, and we have our living quarters here above the nightclub. Right in here, Inspector.
Not much of a mess. Mustn't have been a struggle.
There wouldn't be much blood in a death like this. Death was too instantaneous.
As we said, Inspector, Dean came to Thomas and me and asked if he could come up here to talk over a business deal with this Johnson fellow. Dean had put up the money for his club, too, but Johnson wasn't cutting in with enough dough.
Was Dean financing your club, too?
Why, yes. But to get back to the story, Inspector, Dean and Johnson came up here to this room. After about half an hour, Thomas and I heard 2 shots. We happened to be in the kitchen just below here.
We ran right up, but Johnson had beat it.
But not before he stopped to plant my necktie in Dean's hand to frame us. Make it look like I killed Dean.
How about that necktie in the victim's hand, Coroner?
It looked as though Dean ripped it off the neck of his killer.
See? Johnson's a smart operator. He knew it would look that way.
Can you remove the tie from his hand, Coroner?
Yes, if you want me to break his hand. It's a case of cadaveric spasm, Inspector. Dean has a death clutch on it, and the only way you'll remove it is by breaking the hand.
Johnson must have gone up into our wardrobe, grabbed one of Gerald's ties, and torn it. Then put it into Dean's hand and forced the fingers around it.
Yeah. Johnson was jealous of our business and was double-crossing Dean, so he thought this would be a way to kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
He killed Dean and planted suspicion on us.
You might as well store your alibi, boys. Johnson had nothing to do with this. Gerald, you fired the fatal shots as your brother Thomas stood by and watched. I'm arresting both of you for Dean's murder.
Do you know what evidence proves Gerald pulled the trigger? In 1 minute, we'll be back with the solution. But first...
Oh, Inspector Nichols. First, let's get things right. It's quite impossible to grab a necktie so tightly that it can't be pulled free. Second, while cadaveric spasm is a real thing, it's so very rare that it's discounted in most investigation. But there is one point that makes your case plausible. The victim has to be alive and holding the item before his death. Now let's get back.
Now, back to the inspector and his explanation.
Johnson couldn't have planted that necktie, Gerald. That tie of yours in Dean's hand is the clue proving your guilt. As you walked close to him and shot, he grabbed at you, caught hold of your tie, and in falling, tore the tie off. When a person dies suddenly, as did Dean, they often clutch tenaciously as to whatever happens to be in their hands. Their fingers are set in an unmovable grasp. In that case, it's a medical impossibility for anyone to place something in the victim's hand and cause that dead hand to grasp it as tightly as Dean has your tie. That clue in Dean's hand is going to be worth 2 killers in the electric chair.
Well, isn't that a great use of a very old cliché? Did you know the phrase, "a bird in hand is worth more than 2 in the bush," refers to medieval falconry? In this case, the bird in the hand, the falcon, was certainly worth more than 2 in the bush. How that relates to catching 2 killers, I'm going to leave to you. This was all brought to you by saying nonsense and making it sound believable.
What's that you say?
I have to say, I have some news for you. I just learned that starting this week, Ron's Amazing Stories can now be heard twice a week on the radio. That's right, we will continue to be on Sunday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern. However, we have been added to the Thursday night lineup at 10 p.m. Eastern on amfm247.com. I was told that with the popularity growing for the show, they decided to give it a second play. For those of you who don't know, AM/FM 247 is both an internet stream and plays live in 12 cities across the United States. How about that? And my thanks to the wonderful folks at amfm247.com. I've had a few people wondering about why their stories haven't been played. I have received quite a stack and I'm working through them as quickly as I can. But know that if I have acknowledged your story being received and said that it will air, it is coming. I always send out a note telling you that I got your story and then a second note saying whether or not I can play it. If you've not heard from me at all, then please do ask me. If you're using the email address to send in your story and you do not fill in the subject blank, it will go directly to the spam folder, and if that happens, I'm probably gonna miss it. Also, the best method to make sure your story is seen is to post it to me using the submission page at ronsamazingstories.com. Remember, I do want your stories and I value them very much. The more I have to read, the better I feel. And now, this word from Audible. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. They have over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, computer, Kindle. Whatever you have, you can definitely listen to Audible on it. So what am I listening to right now? One of my favorite stories of all time is Ender's Game, written by Orson Scott Card. I have read the book, loved the 2013 movie, and have now listened to the Audible version. Of the 3, I have to say that one is the best. Why? Well, listen to this.
"This won't take long, Andrew," said the doctor. Ender nodded. "It's designed to be removed without infection, without damage, but there'll be some tickling, and some people say they have a feeling of something missing. You'll keep looking around for something you were looking for, but you can't find it and you can't remember what it was. So I'll tell you, it's the monitor you're looking for and it isn't there. In a few days, that feeling will pass." The doctor was twisting something at the back of Ender's head. Suddenly, a pain stabbed through him like a needle, from his neck to his groin. Ender felt his back spasm, and his body arched violently backward. His head struck the bed. He could feel his legs thrashing, and his hands were clenching each other, wringing each other so tightly that they arched. Dee Dee, shouted the doctor. I need you. The nurse ran in, gasped. Got to relax these muscles. Get it to me, now. What are you waiting for? Something changed hands. Ender could not see. He lurched to one side and fell off the examining table. Catch him! Cried the nurse. Just hold him steady. You hold him, doctor. He's too strong for me. Not the whole thing. You'll stop his heart. Ender felt a needle enter his back just above the neck of his shirt. It burned. But wherever in him the fire spread, his muscles gradually unclenched. Now he could cry for the fear and pain of it. Are you all right, Andrew? The nurse asked. Andrew could not remember how to speak. They lifted him onto the table. They checked his pulse, did other things. He did not understand it all. The doctor was trembling. His voice shook as he spoke. They leave these things in the kids for 3 years. What did they expect? We could have switched him off. Do you realize that? We could have unplugged his brain for all time. When does the drug wear off? Asked the nurse. Keep him here for at least an hour. Watch him. If he doesn't start talking in 15 minutes, call me. Could have unplugged him forever. I don't have the brains of a bugger.
Ender's Game tells the story of Andrew Ender Wiggin. The war with the buggers has been raging for 100 years, and the quest for the perfect general has been underway for almost as long. Is Andrew the answer to decades of genetic experimentation? His story tells us the answer. Ender's Game was written in 1985 and is a military science fiction novel written by Orson Scott Card. It has won both the Hugo and Nebula Awards for Best Science Fiction Story and truly is a work of art. You can have this book today. Here is what Audible has set up for us. Audible is offering a free audiobook and 30 days to give you the opportunity to check out their service. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories, and you can have Ender's Game today. Thank you, Audible. And now, it's time for your stories.
These are your stories, sent by you, for you.
This story was sent in by Rod Sterling. Yes, you heard that right, but before you think it might be the story by the famous creator of the Twilight Zone, his name was actually Rod Serling and has nothing to do with it. Rod Sterling writes us from Seattle, Washington, and had this to say. Ron, I have a Christmas story for you that is a real head-scratcher. My family and I have tried everything we can think of to debunk it, but there just doesn't seem to be an answer as to how this could have happened. We've all sworn under oath that it was not a prank, and I tell you now exactly what happened on December 25th, 2018. My grandfather passed away 2 years ago, 2 days before Christmas. Needless to say, the family was devastated, and in that year, 2017, we didn't have much to celebrate about. My grandpa loved Christmas. He had a full beard and would don a Santa suit to hand out all of our presents. It didn't stop there. He would go to hospitals, retirement homes, and even played Santa for the local Christmas parade each year. All of that ended the day he died. Or did it? Last year, we decided that he would be part of our Christmas and that we would not let his passing be the end. We set up his suit next to the tree with a picture of his face in place. It was wonderful, and we could all feel his presence and even spoke to our self-made mannequin like he was Grandpa. We sat around the tree to open our gifts. Instead of having Grandpa do the honors, we each took a turn handing them out, and it went very well. At the end, we stopped and went around the room, each telling a story about him or what he meant to us. Next, we all went to the dinner table. Dinner was as good as ever, and soon we were chatting about this and enjoying the Christmas season like never before. At the end of dinner, we all decided from that point on that Grandpa would become a Christmas tradition. That's when we heard a crash come from the living room. We all ran to see what happened and found Grandpa face down on the floor. We laughed and propped him back up. My brother made a comment that Grandpa could never hold his liquor. At this point, we kind of broke into groups. One playing games at the dinner table, another chatting, and still another playing with our gifts. I was out in the kitchen helping my wife set up her brand new Nutra-Ninja, something that she's wanted for years, when out of the blue came another crash from the living room. Grandpa had fallen again. This time we were all a little shaken because there was no reason this should have happened. In fact, we had added a little more sturdiness to the mannequin. But here he was, face down on the floor again. Of course, no one was in the room, and amazingly, everyone was accounted for during the accident. We came to the end of the night, and we all gathered at Grandpa for one last time to say good night. While we stood there, Grandpa wavered and fell flat on his face while we all watched in astonishment. No one touched him or was even all that close. While I didn't hear it, 2 people said that they clearly heard someone laughing as he fell. Nothing else happened that evening. Grandpa never fell again, and we kept him up till well after New Year's Eve. I don't know what to make of all this. We tried to find an explanation, but never did. I do know this: we plan to have Grandpa back for this coming Christmas. I will write you after the season to let you know if Grandpa comes back. Rod Sterling, Seattle, Washington. Well, Rod, I love this story. So many eyes and such a good feel to it. You have to believe that Grandpa did come back for a visit, and I hope the tradition continues this year. Thank you for sharing your tale. It has to be one of the best Christmas stories I've ever heard, and I can't wait to hear from you after Christmas. To Grandpa I say, Merry Haunting. We all love a good story, but what we truly crave is a ghost story. It's time now for Ghost Stories with Sylvia. Slyvia Shults is a librarian and author by day, but at night, she becomes a ghost hunter. Following a lifetime spent in the pursuit of the weird and the strange, her non-fiction works include Ghost of the Illinois River, Fractured Spirits, 44 Years in Darkness, Hunting Demons, and The Spirits of Christmas. We now cross over the veil and join Sylvia as she tells us more tales from the unknown. Are you there, Sylvia?
I'm here. Come on in, Ron.
Well, Sylvia, how you doing? I had a kind of a rough time getting here in my sleigh.
Did you?
Yeah, well, you don't have any snow.
Well, no, not at the moment.
Here I was going to ride up on my sleigh with my reindeer here, and I was going to take you for a sleigh ride, and It's just plain mud out here.
Yeah, tough going with those sleigh runners over the mud. That's no fun at all. So, would you like eggnog or hot spice cider?
Well, I'm not big on sugar, so can I have cinnamon tea?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right. Well, this is absolutely wonderful cinnamon tea. So how are you, Sylvia? How's things been?
I am just absolutely wonderful. I'm looking forward to bundling up. We don't have snow, but it is still a bit chilly here in Illinois. And I'm going out to watch the Geminid meteor shower.
That's a kind of a big deal. That's seen just about everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And it's supposed to be really powerful this year, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, back home, I'm looking at cloudy skies and lots of rain. But hey, I'm in the Pacific Northwest.
You'll have that.
Especially this time of year. We call it the 200 days of rain now.
Oh, well, good for the Ducks.
Yep, it's good for the Ducks. And they're going to face Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl.
Oh.
That's a football reference, in case you didn't know.
I gathered.
Yeah, well, you're not too far from Wisconsin. It's just hovering
That's
above
true.
you there.
Just to the north.
Now,
all those cheeseheads right across the border.
Yep. Well, and I am one of them. I was born there.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I was born in Dodgeville, Wisconsin.
I have cousins in Madison.
I was born with a football in my hand and Lombardi coming there and welcoming me to the planet. That's my recollection. He was there, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Why not?
And in case you didn't catch that reference, I'm also a Green Bay Packer fan.
Oh, okay. Thank you for explaining that. I did not catch that reference.
I don't think anybody could have, actually, but now everyone knows that I am an Oregon Ducks fan, and they're going to face the Badgers in the Rose Bowl, and my Green Bay Packers are doing absolutely wonderful this year.
I'm delighted to hear it.
Now, I have a bit of trivia for you.
Oh, yeah?
Well,
what's up?
Do you remember how we were talking a little bit before the podcast today, kind of just chit-chatting?
Mm-hmm.
I gave you a bit of news that we have 942 listeners in the state of Illinois.
That is absolutely fabulous.
And Little Bird told me that you have some news for those 942 people.
That is correct. I just got word a little while ago that Spirits of Christmas is available on a library app called BiblioBoard. It's super easy. It's free to use, and you don't have to use a library card to access this app. All you need to do is go to your phone, your tablet, or your computer and type in library.biblioboard.com, or you can also access inkie.org, INKIE.org, and search Spirits of Christmas. And once the book cover pops up, click on that, and instantaneously that book will be on your tablet or your phone or whatever, and you can read it. There's no waiting, there's no holds, nothing. And it is instantaneous. I tried it. It's amazing.
Now, there is one little drawback, and it is only available if you live in the state of Illinois, correct?
True.
So
other states might have different library apps, but this particular one covers Illinois.
So sorry for everybody else out there, but if you're an elitist and live in Illinois, you can have Spirits of Christmas.
You sure can. Absolutely free.
I thought you'd react badly to the elitist comment.
Oh, well.
Well, briefly tell us about the Spirits of Christmas, because a lot of listeners out there might not know what that is. So.
Oh, well, the Spirits of Christmas is a collection of true ghost stories collected by me. It is over 120 true ghost stories of Christmas and Christmas Day and bleak midwinter and December. And it's this 12 days of Christmas times 10. Oh, really? I had ridiculous amounts of fun writing this book. It was bunches of fun to research and write these stories up for you guys. And I just had a blast, and everyone really enjoys it. So you should read it.
Well, for those of us who are not in Illinois, you can actually get the book at Amazon or wherever wonderful books are sold.
You got it.
So, Sylvia, what's our subject this week? I'm kind of excited because I kind of heard a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today.
Oh, yes. I have Christmas ghost stories to share with you guys. I picked out 4 of the stories in Spirits of Christmas, and I will share them with you and get you in the Christmas ghost story kind of mood.
So wait a minute. Not only is the book available for purchase, but you're going to give us a preview of 4 stories that are in the book.
Right. 4 stories out of 120. More than
Wow.
120, actually. Yeah.
So how did you go about picking 4? How did these 4 stand out above all the 120 plus more?
Oh, it was a really tough choice, Ron. I got to tell you. One of them is about a cat, and I love cats, and that just jumped out at me. A couple of them are actually from Illinois, since we were talking about Illinois. And the last one is just a crazy bit of late 19th century shenanigans that I just had to include because it's just so bizarre and strange.
Let's start out with the ghost cat then.
Okay. So there was a woman named Susie Lehman, and she had a cat that she loved very much. She named it Fat Kitty. She unfortunately lost Fat Kitty. The cat eventually grew old and passed away. Susie's son was born prematurely, and this cat had a real soft spot for this premature baby and would watch over the little boy. And the cat seemed to continue that protective behavior even after death. Susie would see little glimpses of a shadow cat under the baby's bassinet. You know, just try to look at it and just out of the corner of the eye sort of thing. She would see this little shadow cat running around underneath the baby's bassinet. She also noticed that the blankets on the side of the bed that was closest to the baby's crib would continually be messed up like a little ghost cat was lying on it. Now, Fat Kitty had a litter of kittens, and Susie kept 2 of the kittens. Now, one of them she named Calico, and Calico absolutely loved Christmas ornaments. She loved Christmas trees. She loved batting the shiny ornaments, and she would, she's a little cat, a little short little thing, so she would walk around underneath the lowest branches of the tree, and she'd kind of bat at them. Well, after Calico passed away, Susie had put up the Christmas tree one year, and she happened to be walking through the living room and glanced over at the Christmas tree, making sure everything was perfect, and she noticed that one of the ornaments on the bottom limb of the tree was swinging back and forth. And she said that's what Calico always loved to do. She loved to run by and slap at an ornament as she went past, or lay underneath the ornament and bat at it. And she said, I don't know what made me do this, but I looked at the tree and I just said out loud, Calico, just leave the tree alone. And the ornament stopped moving immediately.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. Her husband saw it too. He saw it at a different time, saw the exact same behavior.
Huh.
So she had a visit from her little cat that continued to play with the ornament.
Well, the only thing I have to say about this story is her inability to come up with names for her cats. Those are not real ingenious names.
Well, no.
I'm just saying.
Well, we love our pets, and we give them names that appeal to us and fit their personality, and maybe Calico was a brightly colored tortoiseshell cat.
I'm sure he was. Or I guess could still be is?
Yeah, maybe. On the other side, it's still a tortoiseshell.
We just don't know about... We know that they have 9 lives, but we don't know where those lives take them. It could get real deep in here, so we probably should leave it at that. All right, let's move on to story number 2.
Okay, story number 2 involves the Dana home in Springfield, Illinois. There is a beautiful Frank Lloyd Wright designed home in Springfield that was built for Susie Lawrence Dana. She lived in the house in the early part of the 20th century. She had the house built in 1901. She tapped Frank Lloyd Wright to design this beautiful, huge house for her. She was widowed very young, and her husband left her some money. She spent this money on the house, and it's huge. It's a historic home in the middle of downtown Springfield, and it's a really, really popular tourist attraction. You can take tours of the house at Christmas time. Susie Lawrence Dana actually really loved Christmas. She would throw her house open and have open houses. She'd have parties for the orphans at a nearby orphanage, shower them with Christmas presents. She loved the holiday season. So the Dana house is always decorated for Christmas. And when they do tours during the Christmas season, they have musicians that are hired to come and play and give a little bit of holiday ambiance to the place. I spoke with one of these musicians. His name is Mike Anderson, and he plays the hammered dulcimer. The Dana house is notoriously haunted. It's not anything bad. It's just a really active place. He shared several stories with me, and a couple of them involved his experiences during the Christmas season. He's been performing at the Dana home for almost 40 years, so he's got a lot of experience to draw on. He says the house definitely has its own personality, and when you go there, you can really experience that. He told me that one of the favorite places to put a musical group or a musician is above the front door, because there's a balcony there that looks out over the front hallway.
Cool.
Yeah. He says there was one year that he and a vocalist and a guitar player were doing Christmas music on that balcony. And then there's a window there, and the sun happened to be pouring through the window, and that little space on the balcony got really warm because the sun coming through the window. The musicians shift for 8 hours long, and the musicians played in 2 to 3 hour shifts and then would take a break and then would come back. So the other two performers went on their break, and Mike was up there just playing by himself for a while. And he's told me that suddenly the balcony got deathly cold to the point where he could barely move his fingers to play. And it stayed that way for about 10 minutes. And then it went away, and it wasn't cold anymore, and the sun warmed that space back up. So just a really weird experience. And he says during another Christmas open house, one of the performers was a young violin player, a boy about 12 or 14 years old. As the seasoned performer, Mike led the boy to the balcony because he figured that putting the boy up there, his violin music would be coming ethereally from this balcony and just dazzle everyone that came in that front door into that front foyer. And then Mike left the kid there and went to the gallery where he was going to be set up. As Mike was going to the gallery, he heard the boy calling him back in this panicked voice. And Mike came back to the front entryway and looked up at the balcony and saw the kid there. And the violin player was looking down at him, and the boy said, "I'm sorry, I can't play here." And Mike said, "Well, why not?" And the kid says, "I don't know." And this kid's, he's a teenager. He's really talented at the violin. He's trying to do a good job at this gig that he's been hired for, and he just can't play because his fingers are so cold up in that balcony. And he was embarrassed about it, but Mike's like, "You know what? I got this. You're fine. I'll put you somewhere else." There was another story that Mike shared with me, again, about the Dana house. There's another balcony on a tour. You have to pass the balcony to get to Susie Dana's bedroom, which is, you can see that on the tour. And Mike was set up on the balcony. He could hear a tour group that was on its way, little voices coming through the hallway. So he started playing "What Child Is This" on his dulcimer. And the tour group came through, paused at the balcony for just a little while, and then went on into the bedroom. And he noticed that there was a woman who was walking several steps behind the tour group, and she was wearing a long winter coat. And Mike was playing his music, and he watched the group go into the bedroom, and this woman kind of hung back, and he looked over at her and he said, you better hurry up and catch up with the rest of the group. And then he looked down at his dulcimer playing for a little bit, for just a moment. Then he looked up and the woman was gone. And he's like, oh, okay, this is weird. So this actually happened several times. And every time, Mike had started playing the song, What Child Is This? On the dulcimer. And it got to where he could almost summon this spirit by playing that song.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. Well,
yeah.
While you were talking, I brought up some pictures of the Dana house. I'll have a link to this, but you can actually take an online tour of all those places you just mentioned. And in fact, I'm looking at the picture right now of the area that you were talking about, the initial area above the door. So you can see it's right above this place is immense. And,
yes.
And it's just right above and looking down at it looks like a table, a big long table.
Yeah.
And it's just a beautiful, it's all woodwork. The woodwork is just gorgeous. Yeah.
Well, it's a historic home designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. And yeah, it's amazing. I'm actually going to be doing a Lights Out episode in the coming year about the Dana house.
Nice. This place is beautiful. I highly recommend it. I just happened to find this tour, and it's just a collection of pictures that take you all through it. So if the listeners want to see what she was talking about, they're there. I'll include that link in the show notes.
Yeah, thanks.
It's beautiful, beautiful. Sorry to take us aside, but I had to look while you were telling me, because I just started trying to picture this in my head, and actually looking at it makes it a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
Now, I understood that there were more stories, and you're going to tell us another one?
Yes, I am. Here is another story from Illinois. We have got a lot of phantom hitchhikers, especially up around Chicago. And a lot of people know the story of Resurrection Mary, who hitches rides with guys, and she kind of disappears once you pass Resurrection Cemetery on Archer Avenue. So really well-known phantom hitchhiker there. But she is not our only roadside ghost. In December of 1980, a phantom began to be seen near the small town of Byron, Illinois. Soon became known as the Kennedy Road Phantom. Her appearance was so shocking that once word got up, traffic for a while became bumper to bumper along Kennedy Road, with people just craning their necks to get a glimpse of this phantom hitchhiker. This was mostly because it was the phantom of a young woman who was dressed very skimpily.
I'm not sure what that means.
Well, she basically was wearing next to no clothes at all. And this is in Chicago in the middle of winter. There's one witness, Dave Trenholm, who reported that he was driving along Kennedy Road. This is January 2nd, 1981. So the phantom had been seen for a few weeks at that point. And Dave was driving along with a friend of his, and this young lady stepped out from behind some bushes at the side of the road. And Dave said she was tall, slender, nice looking, about 20 years old. And all she was wearing were some black panties and some kind of scarf around her neck. And it was about 10 degrees that night. So the guys knew that either something was really terribly amiss and somebody was really, really lost, or they were looking at a phantom. The woman turned and spotted the car and ran towards the side of the road and disappeared before she got into the field. Sightings like this went on for weeks, from December 1980 well into January 1981. Reliable witnesses called into the police station every time they saw this phantom, and the reports were always the same. Different witnesses described different outfits, but the girl was seen wearing light-colored shorts and a sweatshirt, or shorts and a light jacket, or even shorts and a halter top. She was just really underdressed for the weather. So people were like, well, is this whole thing just an elaborate hoax, as they say? But it would take a really dedicated prankster to walk around in Chicago weather half naked like that in December and January. So they never did find out who this phantom was. And by the end of January, the reports started to dry up, and that was the end of it. The phantom never appeared again. It's just something weird that happened in December of 1980 and January of 1981.
I guess that begs the question, have you heard about this kind of thing before, where there was a haunting that went a certain duration of time and then just stopped?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There will be a ghost that will show up for an amount of time and then just kind of disappear, and you don't get any more reports about it. Poltergeist activity, especially.
Oh yeah, that
seems
I've heard
to
of.
Run its course. We're going to get off on a tangent here, and
well, it wouldn't be Ghost Stories with Sylvia if we didn't.
True. I love stories of recurring hauntings, but that's not something that happens a whole lot, unfortunately. One of my favorite hauntings that lasted just for a while is a situation reported on by the very famous English ghost hunter Harry Price, working in the early part of the 20th century. There was a farmhouse on, I don't think it was the Isle of Man. It was one of the British Isles up there. It was a farmhouse where a man and a woman lived with their daughter, and they had a talking ghost. It was a poltergeist. It moved stuff, and it took the form of a mongoose, a talking mongoose, and it said its name was Jeff.
I've heard this story.
And it hung around the farmhouse for, I don't know, I want to say it was like a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And then just kind of disappeared. But Harry Price got a good bit of mileage about that. He went to the farmhouse and investigated and got an entire book out of it, which is just delightful.
This last year, Jim Harold had a guest on that did a lot of research on Jeff. And some of the thoughts is that Jeff wasn't really a mongoose, that he was some sort of alien that had crash land on the planet, and that he was eventually picked up and taken home. But yeah, they think that Jeff was actually an intelligent, sentient being from another planet.
Well, it certainly knew enough to ask for cookies.
Yep. And I'm going to say that's the farthest we've gone off track.
Oh, but I love talking about Jeff. Jeff's cute. I never heard the alien theory. That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, there is a book out there that suggests that Jeff was a marooned alien that happened to look somewhat like a mongoose and would live in their house and in the walls, basically.
Yeah.
And talk to them.
Jeff was such an obnoxious little poop, too. Oh, my gosh. All these stories. When he didn't like the treats he was given, he would make barfing sounds.
Well, I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah, Jeff is a character.
Yeah, and there's a lot of information on Jeff. And again, I'm going to encourage you guys, if you want to learn more, you don't have to search very far to find out information about Jeff. And
it's spelled G-E-F.
Yeah. Anyway, I think I've taken us quite a bit off topic. Well, my point is that, I think we've gone far enough.
I do have one more Christmas ghost story.
Let's try to bring this home.
Okay. This story comes from Hatherton Hall in Staffordshire, England. The lords of Hatherton have been living in this house since the time of the Crusades when it was built. But this particular story comes from the end of the 19th century, so late 1800s. There was a Lord Hatherton in residence there at Hatherton Hall, and he was famed for the quality of his cellars. So one Christmas Eve, he threw a party for all his friends, and the guys came to the house, and their wives went to another manor house to do an evening of dancing. So everyone was doing what they wanted to do. So Lord Hatherton and his buddies were in Hatherton's study getting companionably sloshed. And one of the guys, they were wandering around looking at stuff and just having good conversation, maybe a cigar or two. And one of the guys wanders over and picks up something off of Hatherton's desk. And then he puts it down real quick because it's a skull. It's a human skull, and it's been lined with silver. And Lord Hatherton wanders over to his desk, and he picks up the skull casually, and he turns it in his hand, and he said, "Oh, yeah, this belonged to one of my ancestors, Hugh Hatherton. And he was a knight, actually, and buried on the property in a mausoleum. And they were doing some sort of archaeological dig, and they stumbled across this skull of Sir Hugh's, and they brought it up to the manor house. And one of Hatherton's ancestors had the bright idea to line the skull with silver and use it as a drinking bowl." And
not my first choice.
Lord Hatherton was like, "Hey, you guys want to? We've got plenty of booze here. Guys want to drink out of Sir Hatherton's skull?" And half of his friends were like, "Dude, what is wrong with you?" And the other half of his friends were like, "That's actually kind of cool." But then Lord Hatherton said, "Well, why don't we open a bottle of brandy?" So, of course, this got everyone's attention, and he sent his servants down to the cellars to bring up a bottle of brandy, and he poured it into the skull, and it made the rounds of the room, and everybody ended up drinking out of the skull just because of the coolness factor. Around about midnight, they were all just toasted to the gills. They were sitting around, still having a good old time, waiting for their wives to get back from the dance. And all of a sudden, they hear footsteps, heavy footsteps, in the hallway. Everyone's attention was drawn to Lord Hatherton's desk by a small noise. They all looked over. The skull was sitting on the desk, and it rolled off the desk and landed on the floor. And at that moment, there was a pounding on the door of the study, and the door flew open, and there stood a headless knight in full armor. And it kind of made this sarcastic bow to the room, and then turned around and stomped back up the hallway. Everyone was stone cold sober after that. About half an hour later, all the wives came back from their Christmas party and their dancing, and they found their husbands, and the husbands were like, "We're ready for bed now. Let's go to bed." And about half the guys insisted on leaving a candle burning all night in their rooms. They didn't want to sleep in the dark. The next morning, the skull was gone. They found the silver lining of the skull crumpled up in the bushes outside the study window.
Oh, my word.
The skull had vanished. Merry Christmas.
That is a good one. That is a good story.
Thank you. I love it.
Yeah, I love stories like that because that's one you tell around the campfire or Christmas Eve. Last time we talked at Christmas, we were talking about the fact that people would actually get together and tell ghost stories at Christmas time. It was a thing. It was a real thing.
It was definitely a thing.
Yeah. I think you even mentioned a man that wrote a book of ghost stories for Christmas Eve.
Yeah, there was a guy that collected true ghost stories and collected them into a book and brought it out every Christmas for the kids just to scare the paste out of them. And that was his thing.
Yeah, I don't remember what episode we talked about that on, but I remember distinctly that the stories, they were like this one. And just designed to make you think twice about going to sleep on Christmas Eve. And you would think that would be something you do at Halloween. Why Christmas? But I guess it was just a real thing, telling ghost stories at Christmas.
Lord Halifax. I mentioned it in Spirits of Christmas, and I have the book in front of me. Lord Halifax collected all these ghost stories, and he actually published it in 1936. And you can still get it today on interlibrary loan.
Well, that brings me up to something that a little bird told me, is that not only are you supporting Lord Halifax, his tradition, but you yourself are doing something along the same lines with your blog.
As a matter of fact, it is. For the last several years, I have been doing a 12 Nightmares of Christmas post over on slyviashults.wordpress.com. I post true ghost stories, and I do throwback posts to Christmas episodes of Lights Out, and I even throw in a couple of recipes for fun and talk about Christmas traditions like the Roman Saturnalia. So it's my Christmas gift to you every year, 12 Nightmares of Christmas over on the blog.
Well, that sounds exciting. Where can we find it?
You can go to slyviashults.wordpress.com and get in on all the Christmas goodies I have. I know that the 12 Days of Christmas is Christmas to Epiphany, January 6th, but I decided to do this leading up to Christmas. So
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, just to get people in the mood.
Well, so we've talked about what's going on the blog. What's happening with Lights Out? I know you got something going on there, too, because I got a notification today.
Well, I have some wonderful stuff going on at Lights Out. I just posted the episode for Lincoln's New Salem, and this is one of the 12 Nightmares of Christmas. I'm going to be doing a new Lights Out on December 22nd. I'm going to post a brand new Lights Out, and you will get to hear about my experiences at the Villisca Axe Murder House. I know how much you love hearing about that.
We have talked about it at length.
We have. This is going to be the full Lights Out episode, a special Christmas treat for you guys, a new episode of Lights Out at the Villisca Axe Murder House.
I can't wait, because if you'll remember, Sylvia told us that she actually stayed the night in the place. And I also happen to know that something really strange happened, and you have been holding it for this episode.
Yes.
I'm excited to hear that one. I can't wait.
Thank you. It's going to be a blast.
And for the record, folks, you can get that at the same place, slyviashults.wordpress.com. Well, Sylvia, it leaves me with one last question before we call it a night.
What's that?
What do you got planned for Christmas? Are you going to go somewhere spooky, or are you going to do a traditional Christmas?
Well, I thought that I would build a fire in the fire pit in the backyard and bring my phone out and call up a couple episodes of Ron's Amazing Stories and enjoy them by the fire. That's my plan.
Oh, that sounds like you're trying to get on my better side.
Well, it's actually the God's honest truth. That is,
really?
That is what I have planned. Yes.
Well, you're going to find a real lack of Christmas stories, because at every Christmas on Ron's Amazing Stories, I play It's a Wonderful Life. Play the whole thing, the radio version of it, but I do that every Christmas. So you're going to find a real lack of Christmas episodes at Ron's Amazing Stories. I don't treat Christmas like I do Halloween, where I go all out for the entire month and do spooky after spooky after spooky. I can only handle so many lively, fun, nice stories that are uplifting. I can only handle so many of those. But that's what you can expect from Ron's Amazing Stories at Christmas time. But you heard it here first. Well, Sylvia, it has been a pleasure once again. I have enjoyed your stories, and I'm sorry I keep taking us astray, but I think it's my job. I believe that's what I'm here to do.
Well, yes, that's called keeping the conversation going.
Yeah. Wow. You would think I almost knew what I was doing. Well, Sylvia, I want to thank you for joining us. Merry Christmas to you, your family, and may the Lord bless you and keep you.
Thank you, Ron. Merry Christmas to you and yours, and to everyone listening.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Ghost Stories with Sylvia was brought to you by Gladys Goodies. Good treats for your dog and now cat to eat. This past week I received a package from Gladys with treats for my kitty. He absolutely loved them. You can get these treats and some really cool swag for your dog and cat at GladysGoodies.com. And don't forget to use our very own promo code RONS to get a 20% discount on all your purchases. That is GladysGoodies.com. My thanks to Gladys Goodies and, of course, Slyvia Shults. Was that just episode 415?
Ron, I believe it was.
Amazing. I want to thank Rod Sterling and Sylvia for being here today. Your stories were awesome. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, just head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find an amazing number of links that should fit every need. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends about it, and please leave reviews and feedback wherever you listen. This is how podcasts grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's amazing stories.